Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is now the 20th of June, 2017, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where we are in our next installment, where we're taking a look at the audio drama The Dark Planet, which is part of the Lost Stories, which would have probably been made in place of The Web Planet, if it weren't for the fact that this serial has already proven to be too costly for on a Doctor Who budget. You already have this description of this vast city made out of crystal is really where the TARDIS ends up. And you have the light and the darkness sort of fighting each other, like just lights and darkness. It'll be interesting to see where the story actually goes. I actually don't quite remember much about this story. I've listened to it once before, but you have light and dark. It seems like shadows and light fighting each other. A star that seems to be going out. It's going to eventually expand into become a white dwarf, and Vicki is taken away from the rest of the TARDIS crew, basically flown away by the crystals, and the TARDIS starts to get shaken up when the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara try to return there to try to figure out their own little plan of action. When all of a sudden and without warning, we have the darkness coming out of a camera in the TARDIS and enveloping everybody. It's a really, really good, solid first episode, giving us, it feels very much like your traditional Hartnell first episode, where it's a lot of exploration, and the exploration drags just a tiny little bit in the middle. But other than that, we have really, really good stuff going on with, this alien planet. It makes it feel really like, ooh, it's an alien we don't know. This is a really alien landscape where we don't really know what's going on, what to expect. Something. I apologize, my recording just cut out, but I was saying something very alien is going on, and you just have a really, really good soundscape. Brian Hales, this is his first script for Doctor Who, and it's by far shows what an imaginative writer that he is, especially if he is put in an idea where the head makes the pictures. And Matt Fitton does an excellent job, I guess, adapting the script. So you have all of this happening, and but I also have to note that the very beginning of the episode, for like the first half, it doesn't get drawn out, but you have really a extended scene in the TARDIS, which really works as it works to be it makes the travelers feel like they're getting to know each other. It feels really nicely like it picks up after the Web Planet, and I quite agree with that. Agree with that sort of placement for the story, because the Web Planet just sort of feels like that's where the story is going. You have, two very, very alien planets. This first episode very much echoes the first episode of the Web Planet. This time it's Vicky's turn to be thrown away and to be captured, and not Barbara's. So still we have some very good opening stuff. A lot of excitement when it comes to where the story's going, and the only thing is the fact that just some of the middle exploration drags just a little bit. So I think I'm gonna have to give The City of Silence a 9 out of 10. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 29th of June, 2017, and I just finished listening to The Shadow People, the second episode of The Dark Planet, which continues the themes of exploration, but really it allows us to actually see some characters and really sort of explains the world of The Dark Planet. So the Doctor and company are near the beginning of the universe, where there are creatures they're on a crystalline planet where you have the creatures of light, including a girl named Elise who befriends Vicki, and they share a very, very nice relationship. And then the creatures of darkness who live in shadow. Yet there's some sneaking undertones that maybe not everything is as good as it seems on the side of the light. I don't know where that could be going, but it seems quite interesting to me where we are now, that we have some interesting plot lines to follow when it comes to both of these people. I have to say, in this episode, William Russell excels at himself, being Ian and the Doctor. Maureen O'Brien is great as always. it's a bit of a slow episode. Not as good as the first one, but not necessarily bad. But it hits you with a good punch at the end that they're on a doomed planet. If they don't leave, they're gonna die. But there's also the talk of the war between the light and the shadow, which it's pretty good for the way they decide to set up the story and have things be playing out in a sort of a real time, in a sort of a in the timeline. Brian Hales writes what is essentially a really really good script, a script very much based in ideas of just more abstract concepts than it is based on having the perfect. We know what the plot is, plot point A, plot point B, plot point C, so on and so forth. Really, it's the highlight of, and I like the way Big Finish have sort of realized the voices for the creatures of light. They sound alien, and it doesn't seem to be done with too much voice modification, but done with just actors acting with their voice, which makes it feel very much closer to what it would be like if the story was made in the 60s. So I'm going to have to give The Shadow People an 8 out of 10. Alright, so it is the 30th of June 2017, and I just finished listening to The Doomed Planet, the third episode of The Dark Planet, which really, it doesn't do much to the plot. It confirms that this planet is doomed, and it gives our travelers a way to see without having to deal with, the craziness of the city made entirely out of lights. But there just really isn't too much to go into here, sadly, as the episode doesn't do much. It's still a very, very enjoyable episode. William Russell and Marina Bryan are both excellent in their roles, and they both give really, really good performances. And I have to say, they know quite what they're doing. And you actually get to see more of the armies of the creatures of light. I don't quite remember what they're called. I can't seem to be remembering that right now at this moment. But you get a lot of it's a lot of exposition, really, and the story's halfway over. But I do have to say, no, the cliffhanger is really really good, as one of the creatures of darkness actually snuck in through the Doctor's shadow, which is a really really cool way of doing it. But yeah, that's really all I have to say, so I'm gonna have to give the Doom Planet a 7 out of 10. Right, so it is the 1st of July 2017, and I just finished listening to The Caves of Night, the 4th episode of The Dark Planet, and I have to say, well, I almost thought we might be going for a bad second half. This episode really sort of brings a way to bring back the intrigue right into the story as we meet the actual shadows, and we actually see that the light and the shadows, it's not so much one is good, one is evil. It's they both have ideas and they both clash just because they're opposites. You have light and dark, and it's almost pulling the they're not so different after all trope. And it's actually Brian Hales pulls it off really well, I think. You also you have the lights having their plan to blow the world into a sun, while the shadows just decide we're just going to let the planet be destroyed and we'll live a little bit in darkness and then we'll die off because we hate. Again, they both are sick of the fighting. They want to find a solution, and it's a really, really strong way of having the story work, with them just wanting to find a solution to their problems, but they just aren't communicating, and a little communication would probably have it work, because the shadows think the lights can't talk to them, and the lights don't think the shadows can talk to them. It's a very complex idea. That being said, the episode does drag quite a bit overall. I have to say, there is a major drag factor in this one. Again, the acting is still on point, and I really like how the shadows, they have a very menacing voice, but that voice, once it gets talking, and understands English, it becomes, well, it's still a bit on the menacing side. It has this nice sort of eloquence to it, that the actor John Banks does a really good job of letting come across in his performance, I have to say. It's a very it's just a very interesting way, I think, of doing the episode. I don't know how much I want to say that really describes it. And you also have the cliffhangers, which are really, really good. You have, again, it shows that both sides are capable of doing bad things, and it's not like the light is good, the dark is bad. They're both in an area of, being morally gray, so to speak. And I have to say, I really do enjoy that aspect of the story very, very much. It really works. So I think I'm gonna have to give The Caves of Night, as the episode is called, an 8 out of 10, because it's definitely improving, and I hope that it keeps up, because this is going to be a really interesting story to see finish. Alright, it's the 2nd of July, 2017, and I just finished listening to The Sunbomb, which I have to say is ramping us up towards what's going to be a pretty interesting conclusion for the Dark Planet, as you have both forces still trying to fight each other, the Doctor realizing that, not everything is good, not everything is evil, and the bomb being ready to blow everything up in a crazy amount of explosion of light, which will be very, very interesting to see just how everything decides to play out. Not as much happens in this episode. Again, it's very much getting us towards the conclusion, so that is definitely a flaw when it comes to the episode itself. This is mainly going to be a shorter reaction because I am running low on time right now, so we really have a pretty good way of finishing everything up, and I really everything's, again, as usual, the acting's great. Again, everything was recorded within a period of 3 days, so nothing's really changed from episode to episode. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about The Sunbomb. It gets an 8 out of 10. Alright, it's still the 2nd of July, 2017, as I decided I would just double up episodes and finish up The Dark Planet tonight. So, mainly because I'm not quite happy with The Sunbomb, and I just wanted to finish it, and get the audio over with, and move on. And I have to say, I am glad I did, because this was a very, very good episode. This final episode is essentially a retelling of The Scorpion and the Frog, which is one of Aesop's fables, where basically a scorpion asks a frog to take him across a river, promising not to prick him because then they would both die and there'd be no advantage to that. But halfway through, the scorpion does its deed, pricks him, and they both drown in the river. It's obviously, don't be too trusting, and if something is evil, something is treacherous to you by nature, don't trust it under any circumstances. It's a very interesting moral for Hales to do, because he basically makes the light and the dark both be the scorpion and frog. They both cause each other's downfall, even after they decide, we're gonna work together and it's gonna be great. That doesn't happen this time. It's a very, very, I think, I don't want to quite say nuanced, but it's a very, very good story, good episode. I have to say this is actually probably the highest point of this story, just because it's so good at doing what it wants to do. It makes the episode feel like almost like something new, even though it really isn't anything quote unquote new, so to speak. I mean, it does a lot of it does a lot of interesting, really interesting things, in my opinion, on just morals, and it's a beautiful way, and they both die, but it's not quite as sad because they both end up starting causing the start of the universe together. It's a very poignant way to end, and I just really enjoyed it. I also have to say the rush to the TARDIS at the end that was excellently portrayed, better than I thought it would be. Because I didn't think it would be portrayed very well. But I was very gladly wrong, and they did William Russell and Maureen O'Brien, of course, did an excellent job at portraying that aspect of the story to the audience, I have to say. So I have to all I have to say is that I have to give Invasion of Darkness a 10 out of 10, because that's really what it's deserving. That adds the Dark Planet score up to an 8.33 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and next time on the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, we will be doing The Crusade.